In the heart of a city where justice often clocked out early, a black man named Jamal West found himself at the center of a storm he never saw coming. Two officers, Riley and Jenkins, painted in shades of old-school prejudice, slammed him with an arrest warrant built more on bias than fact. But when Jamal's true identity hit the system, the precinct didn't just pause, they froze. What secret was this man holding that flipped the badge-heavy atmosphere into silent disbelief? Stick around, because what unfolds isn't just a courtroom drama. It's a reckoning long overdue. The city yawned awake, light spilling between towers like golden secrets. Horns honked, sneakers slapped pavement, and the scent of fresh coffee clung to the air. In the middle of the chaos, Jamal moved like a jazz solo, smooth, composed, and precise. Mid-30s, suited like tomorrow's headline, he strolled with a presence that said, "I don't chase storms. I quiet them." His shoes clicked in rhythm, a calm metronome in the urban orchestra. He'd just left his favorite diner. Eggs, turkey bacon, fresh fruit, the kind of breakfast that said he valued the day ahead. They knew his name there. They knew his order. Jamal didn't just pass through the neighborhood. He etched himself into it. And as he reached for the handle of his sleek black sedan, the morning's script was about to change. Permanently. My phone buzzed. Mom, of course, a gentle reminder about dinner. She's the only one who still texts, like every message is a hug. I shot back a quick reply, told her I'd be there. Always am. Family doesn't wait, especially not for me. Then I saw them. Two officers, cutting through the noise with eyes that didn't blink. I didn't know their faces, but that wasn't strange. Cops rotated in and out like shadows. Still, something in their walk sent a flicker up my spine. Dad always said it. Stay calm, stay smart, stay alive. I could hear his voice like static in my chest. Don't move too fast. Don't sound too loud. "Excuse me, sir." The taller one spoke, and I turned slow, careful. Phone still in hand. "Yes, officer?" Polite? Practiced? Riley. That's what his badge said. The other, Jenkins, stood back, fingers twitching near his holster, like they had someplace else to be. "Can I see some ID?" Riley's tone wasn't a request. It was a gavel. No reason. No intro. I felt the tension wind tighter in the air. I took a breath. May I ask why? Calm. Always calm. The stakes are too high for anything else. Officer Riley's eyes performed a dramatic squint, accompanied by a lip curve suggesting a private joke at the universe's expense. "The sacred card, citizen. A formality." Jamal, a monument to weary patience, conducted the slow symphony of retrieving his wallet. "As you wish," he announced, the phrase laced with unspoken footnotes. Though the preamble to this request remains curiously absent. Transferring the license felt like passing contraband. Jenkins subtly adjusted his stance, a man bracing for applause. Jamal's internal alarms hummed a high C, his exterior the picture of glacial calm. Riley examined the ID as if deciphering hieroglyphs, his face a masterpiece of bureaucratic indifference. "Purpose gracing our esteemed neighborhood?" The tone implied trespass. A delicate furrow appeared on Jamal's brow. "Engaging in the retrieval of my parked automobile. Factual. Pure. Provoking distress?" Riley, a bulldozer in blue, plowed onward. "Previous coordinates?" "Braking fast at yonder establishment." Jamal's voice held steady. "Officer, does a problem bloom here?" Riley's glance flicked up, a microflare of pique, before returning the card like a losing poker chip. "Whispers of anomalous activity," he declared, the smirk reinstated. "Your description aligns with a person of interest." Jamal's insides tightened. Ah, the classic pastoral. Well-dressed melanin in verdant suburbia equals probable narrative. The predictability was its own exquisite insult. "I apprehend," Jamal offered, diplomatic as a seasoned envoy. "Likely a case of mistaken identity. My chariot awaits, then gainful employment." Riley seemed to have entered a soundproof booth. The badge took a step, crowding the air like cheap cologne. "What's your racket?" the flatfoot growled, shoulders squared for trouble. "I dance with statutes," Jamal answered, voice smooth as poured bourbon. "Got a jury waiting. Unless you're buying?" That knocked the smirk off Riley's kisser for a heartbeat. "A mouthpiece? Cute." The quiet one, Jenkins, finally found his tongue. "Clean ride? Or you hauling something interesting?" The streetlight felt hot. Jamal knew this dance. One wrong step, and the music stops forever. "Car's cleaner than your conscience, Sarge. Peek if it scratches your itch, but the clock's ticking." Riley's eyes turned to flint. "You ain't running this show. Back off the wheels." Jamal froze. Cross the blue line now or eat pavement later. His old man's ghost whispered, "Play the long con." "Fine," Jamal breathed, hands drifting up slow, telegraphing zero threat. He slid back a step. Riley filled the space, fingers brushing the leather on his hip. Jamal's pulse drummed a war song, face a blank slate. Then Riley moved like a sprung trap, wrenching Jamal's arm into a cruel half-Nelson. Pain bit deep. Before the gasp died, Jenkins was on him, driving him down into the concrete embrace. Ground impact, audio, strained vocalization. Current action justification. Subject maintains non-aggressive posture. Officers apply restraints despite compliance. Charge, resistance during detainment. Subject's facial analysis, disbelief. Resistance equals absence of resistance. Commotion registers on perimeter sensors. Apartment 3B balcony, elderly female. Voice print, Agnes Carter. Terminate procedure. No behavioral flags in resident database. Sidewalk Unit 12, couple plus K9, engages recording device. Male vocalization. Documenting unlawful containment. Subject notes recording device. Pupillary reaction. Hope spike. 0.8 seconds. Vertical relocation performed. Subject maintains controlled respiration. Crowd density increases 300%. Vocal outbursts. Procedure violation. Officers ignore. Subject placed in mobile unit. Through reinforced glass, subject observes crowd emotional signatures. Anger confusion. Final audio capture before transport. Narrative continuation assured. Subject's declaration dissipated as the transport unit departed. Within the containment vehicle, neurological activity spiked, processing future countermeasures and justice protocols. Processing Facility 12 presented stark environmental contrast. Monochrome surfaces, aggressive luminescence, and high-decibel operational chatter. Personnel moved with purpose through corridors, though baseline stress metrics registered elevated, evidenced by suppressed vocal frequencies and ocular hypervigilance. Subject West Jamal entered under dual escort, restraints intact. Visual scans by on-duty personnel indicated atypical profile recognition, elevated sartorial status, and anomalous calmness in detainee cohort. Primary escort redirected subject to processing station Delta, staffed by Operator 7, fatigue markers evident. Designation, Operator 7 requested. Escort vocalized identifier pre-subject response. Operator 7 initiated database cross-reference, microexpression, confusion, duration 0.8 seconds. Redirected to biometrics station. Subject complied during dactyloscopy despite cognitive distress feedback loops. Historical precedent analysis suggested strategic silence optimal. Post-procedure, escorts transferred subject to secure holding pod 5. Specimen containment, minimal square footage, bench 120 centimeters, sanitation unit, corner mounted, atmosphere 78% industrial cleanser, 22% unidentified organic decay, restraints removed. Optimize occupancy duration, Jenkins advised, vocal patterns indicating sarcasm, 87% certainty. Subject assumed seated position, zero engagement with provocation, recognized stimulus trap. Officers exited. Post-procedure analysis occurred via ocular exchange. Primary hypothesis confirmed, another threat neutralized. Anomaly detected in Riley's biometrics. Elevated respiratory rate plus pupil dilation when recalling subject's atypical neural placidity. Legal professional designation? Fabrication for status elevation? Jenkins hypothesized at station. Affirmative. Riley concurred while processing cognitive dissonance. Subject's cortisol levels incompatible with standard detainee profile. Protocol adherence? 100%. Justification? Irrelevant. Junior researcher Stevens initiated contact sequence. Jenkins thrust him in the stone cage. Take thy repose, false counselor. Jamal sat as still as carved effigy, letting barbs fall like spent arrows. The constables withdrew, exchanging weighted glances. Young Stevens, keen-eyed and green of doublet, drew Riley aside. My lord, take heed. This prisoner wears fame's cloak, a champion of wronged souls. His name rings in the courthouse halls. Riley's visage paled. Thou'rt deceived, boy. Nay, Stevens whispered low. Tread lightly, lest this spark become wildfire. A cold stone settled in Riley's belly. Be gone, I'll bear this burden. Yet disquiet clung like rotten velvet. As Stevens sought the captain's ear, Jamal kept vigil in his cell, a general awaiting dawn's battle. The blast door hissed open. Operator KT-37 entered the precinct hub, ocular implants scanning thermal signatures. Freshly deployed from Sector 9, her reputation preceded her. Compliance algorithm uncompromised. Processing nodes. Riley/Jenkins showed abnormal chatter patterns at main terminal. Unit Riley. Status report. Detainee Jamal West. Riley's biometrics spiked. Charge. Non-compliance during suspicion protocol. KT-37's lenses zoomed. Verification. Resistance without kinetic evidence? Affirmative. She ran facial micro-expression analysis. Deception probability? 78%. Directive. Access detainee. Now. Riley's hesitation, 0.8 seconds, logged as violation foreshadowing. At cell block Gamma, Subject West displayed anomalous calm metrics. KT-37's threat assessment subroutine recalibrated. The bars were cold brass. Thompson walked in like a midnight sax solo. This your man? She riffed to Riley's offbeat shuffle. Cat wouldn't swing with the program. She stepped into Jamal's blues, his eyes holding steady bass notes. West, Thompson, lay down your track. Jamal's voice was smooth piano. Played every note they called, asked one question, why the tune changed. Next thing, cuffs on the bridge. Thompson's ears caught the truth harmony. She turned to Riley's sour trumpet. He follow the chart? Riley scatted nervously. The vibe. It went sharp, Lieutenant. Vibe? Thompson's laugh was a cymbal crash. That your sheet music? Riley inhaled to blow when the door kicked open. Stevens stood panting, a discordant coda. The holding cell air crackled like decaying space-time. Stevens materialized at the threshold, sensing the gravitational dissonance. Lieutenant, critical anomaly. Thompson tore her gaze from Riley's crumbling facade. Outside the containment field, Stevens vibrated with apocalyptic urgency. Subject West isn't mortal counsel. He's a rights entity, consumed entire precincts in past litigations. His arrest forms a singularity. Will be compressed into career dust. Thompson's organs inverted. Stevens projected Jamal's digital tombstone. Devourer of injustice. Class Omega. Her ocular implants glitched, scanning his case history. Whole justice systems erased in his wake. Riley and Jenkins now resembled trapped nebulae. Officers. Thompson's voice warped space-time. You've shackled a celestial. His lawsuit will collapse our reality. Riley's event horizon wavered. But his mortal disguise. Irrelevant. Reality shuddered as anti-police chants breached dimensional walls. The protest chorus echoed like dying stars. Chants spread like crown fire. Free Jamal! Scorching the station's facade. Fuel overload, Thompson growled. Stevens burst through smoke. Lieutenant. Frontline intelligence, activists, clergy, news drones. This blaze jumps containment in 5. Thompson smelled the accelerant. Routine stop to inferno. Riley. Jenkins. Map your burn path. Every spark documented. Stevens. Draft smokescreen statements. As crews deployed, Thompson shouldered the water cannon's weight. Behind bars, Jamal felt the heat wave. His cavalry had arrived. Embers of hope glowed beneath ash, but fire breaks could still be built. Outside, the 100-acre protest raged. Placard flames, camera spotlights. Thompson eyed the ignition point through heat-hazed glass. Dispatch tanker units before this incinerates us all. Initiate release, she commanded, voice strained gravity. Only containment field for this supernova. Stevens aligned his orbit. The comms arrays? They'll supernova on misunderstanding.pkg. Thompson's logic core flared. Directive. Transmit revised stellar cartography. Evidence void detected. Detention orbit terminated. Broadcast priority. This station orbits Justice Prime. Fairness is our event horizon. Sound. Distant crowd like solar static. A flawed equation, but the only stable variable. Pray it cools the plasma storm. Thompson calculated the entropy. Career trajectory. Department constellation. Total gravitational collapse. She pivoted from the viewport, thrusting toward the brick sector. Sound, magnetic boots, thud. Past Riley and Jenkins, inputting failure logs. She halted, eyes like neutron stars. Post-crisis, full systems audit. Voice, absolute zero. Projection, catastrophic inefficiency exposed. Riley's atmosphere thinned. Adrift. Sound, airlock cycle hiss. Cell portal dilated. Thompson entered, trajectory steady. Mr. West, navigational anomaly logged. You are cleared. Departure authorized. Jamal stood, shields raised. Anomaly? That your official classification, Lieutenant? She locked sensors. No deviation. Regret transmission sent. This trajectory was miscalculated. He scanned for deception, nodded. Precise. Acknowledging course correction. But the sector remains unstable, Lieutenant. Undeniably. The singularity awaited. West wasn't an actor who'd exit stage left after a botched scene. Tonight's emergency curtain call. Whisk him off stage before the audience stormed the theater. She led Jamal past the stagehands avoiding his gaze. Extras who knew they'd flubbed their cues. At the velvet ropes, Thompson took a centering breath. This production will find its truth, she whispered under the Klieg lights. Jamal gave no encore. Stepping into the spotlight, the gallery's roar shook the marquee. Paparazzi flashbulbs popped like fireworks. He moved through their shouted reviews untouched, embracing his ensemble in the wings. Thompson watched from the shadows, expression unscripted. Act 1 ended, but Jamal West would rewrite Act 2 with a vengeance. This drama's aftershocks would play to packed houses for seasons. For now, the house lights rose. Crowds exiting. Critics closing notebooks. The theater's held breath finally released. Her director's notes filled a ledger. But the show would go on. Jamal walked into the alley, knowing his soliloquy began at dawn. They'd handed him a villain's script. He'd turn it into incendiary street theater. When the real script surfaced, this precinct's cheap set would collapse. Backstage, Thompson studied Riley and Jenkins' prompt books. Jamal's calm poise, like an understudy who knew all lines before curtain, gnawed at her. A director's instinct whispered, someone planted false props. 30 years in this business taught her to smell a rigged audition. The station creaked like a cursed mansion, patrolmen avoiding mirrors, stepping over invisible graves. The mob outside had retreated like fog, but the rot lingered. This haunting had just begun. Thompson arched in her velvet throne, the study's silence thick as burial dirt. She needed to autopsy Jamal West's true nature. Why did arresting this man summon such demons? Her family crest couldn't withstand another scandal. Bone-white fingers summoned ancient tomes. Archives revealed West was no simple solicitor, a hunter of shadows who'd exorcised entire city halls. His last quarry? A police coven drowned in their own corruption. Badges turned to headstones, careers buried at midnight. She traced a blood-red entry, Inquisition protocols. West was mapping veins of prejudice through law enforcement's black heart. Her own heart stuttered. She whispered to her raven perched on the FBI crypt line. 3 croaks later, dread confirmation. Jamal West was sharpening silver for the Grand Purge. A master forger documenting the precinct's rot for the crown. Thompson's quill hovered over burning parchment. Jamal wasn't accidental prey. He'd baited the trap with his own arrest. Exposure would make them all heresy trial kindling. She needed illuminated manuscripts before the Inquisition. For one candle mark, she deciphered his guild connections. Legal scrolls that toppled dukes, federal seals cracking like rotten wax. The plot thickened like plague fog. Thompson rose, adjusting her doublet. To the confessional, Riley and Jenkins hunched over their scribe tables like guilty friars. Milady? Jenkins feigned piety. Thompson's ruff stiffened. The Privy Council convenes. They entered the stone-walled chamber where truth went to die. An audience? Riley trembled. Thompson unsheathed her dagger. I know your beggar's true crest. Their ink-stained fingers shook. They'd imprisoned a royal spy. Comprehend the whirlpool you've summoned? Thompson's voice iced the bulkhead. West charts reefs for federal lighthouses. Your catch was mapping our corruption shoals. Riley's face bleached like sun-bleached driftwood. No charts, Captain. He flew no colors. Just another derelict to plunder? Thompson's cutlass gaze swung between them. Jenkins stared at the barnacled floorboards. The dread tide rose in their eyes, realizing they'd scuttled the fleet. You've moored us in a typhoon, Thompson hissed. When this breaks, the harbor drowns with us. Riley found his sea legs. Regulations. Regulations? The mainsail snapped. You boarded without cause. Now federal tempests circle our wreck. Jenkins turned bilge green. The door exploded. Chief Daniels stood like a leviathan breaching. Thompson! Sea spray flew from his epaulets. Explain this mutiny. She squared her shoulders. Chief? Jamal West is a kraken. Daniels' tentacles quivered. And you handed him our cannons. Thompson's teeth ground like forest gravel. Respectfully, Chief? Riley and Jenkins struck the match. Their routine spark just ignited a federal-controlled burn. Daniel's gaze became a water bomber targeting the guilty pyromaniacs. Their containment comes after the blaze. Thompson adjusted her fire shelter. I've mapped the fuel. Jamal West was a fire behavior analyst planting sensors. His arrest was our backdraft moment. One ember escapes, this whole mountain burns to bedrock. Daniel's rage smoldered. Rap, rap, rap. A smoke jumper peered in. Hotshot crew at base camp, Williams, says the fire jumped the ridge. Oxygen vanished from the room. Agent Williams entered like a walking fire break. Impeccable Nomex suit. Incident command eyes. Chief, Thompson. His nod was a dropping humidity gauge. We're taking the helm. Daniels squared his helmet. About the initial attack. Williams unsheathed an infrared tablet. Save the after-action report. I've got satellite thermals. Thompson's heartbeat became crown fire. A storm brewing quietly for months. At its center, Jamal West. No longer just a man, but a keystone in a labyrinthine federal crusade. Agent Williams stood tall, voice tempered like steel from fire. This arrest was a misstep. A single stone out of place on a path lined with traps. If we don't right this, the entire edifice falls. Daniel stirred, the weight of consequences anchoring his spine. We'll do what must be done. Williams nodded, sharp as a sword drawn mid-battle. Good. That allegiance is the shield that might protect you from what's coming. Thompson's mind became a battlefield. She saw now, this wasn't confined to Jamal. The tremor had reached the foundations of the department, the city, the people. Williams's voice rang again, a commandment. He will receive a formal apology. This is not a request. It is your trial. Refuse, and swift judgment will follow. Daniel burned with pride, but swallowed it. He bowed, not in submission, but in strategy. Then came Williams' gaze to Thompson, unreadable, unyielding. You'll lead this, personally. She gave a dry, resolute nod. It will be done. As he crossed the threshold, Williams turned once more. And hear this, he said, now a whisper of thunder. The eyes of the nation are upon you. Any misstep, and the consequences will be biblical. The door shut like the end of an era. Thompson stood in the silence that followed, shoulders heavy with fate. The days ahead would be a gauntlet, and she, unwillingly, its champion. All around the precinct shifted, not physically, but something deeper. The incident with Jamal had unleashed something no one could cage again. The city now waited, breath held, for what came next. Lo, the city did tremble beneath the outcry of its people. With hearts ablaze and voices raised, they stood before the citadel of law, a fortress now besieged by justice long denied. Within, Chief Daniels paced, cloaked in remorse, the walls whispering his failures back to him. He beheld the calling device upon his desk, that cursed oracle, and with a trembling grasp, summoned the scribes of public relations. Summon thy quills, he murmured, for I must address the masses ere twilight falls. Aye, Chief, it shall be done, came the reply, fleeting and distant. He sighed, a breath heavy with old sins. How many seasons had he turned from truth? How oft had Riley and Jenkins, those twin serpents, been shielded by silence and badge alike? The door did creak, and in stepped fair Thompson, eyes fierce with purpose. Sir, the accused waits among the crowd, she said. Daniel stood, spine aching from years bent under corruption. Then I shall speak. Wait, my lord, she spoke, a note of dread in her tone. Before thy speech, know this. I have uncovered foul deeds within our ranks, silver exchanged for silence, shadows in our files, a prejudice as deep as time. It wasn't just Riley or Jenkins. This disease had roots, old, tangled, and deep, had been growing in the shadows for years while brass looked the other way. Daniels felt it. a ghostly draft sliding down his spine, cold as guilt. "You sure about this?" he asked. Thompson gave a curt nod. "Been building a case. Jamal's helping. Feds are in too. We can clean house, but it won't be pretty." Daniels let out a breath like he'd been holding it for decades. His frame drooped, like the truth had finally sucker-punched him. "Then we clean. No more hiding." She looked at him, her gaze like a steel handshake. "I'm with you. Time we proved we're more than a badge." Daniels didn't speak, didn't need to. The fire behind his tired eyes told her he understood. This wasn't a PR fix. This was war. And they were out of time. They walked the hallway like soldiers headed for a trench. As the station doors creaked open, they were met with the roar of justice. The crowd outside, a living wave of outrage and hope. Daniel's gut twisted, but he kept his poker face. Flashbulbs, reporters, demands. He ignored them, found the podium like it was the last island in a flood. His eyes met Jamal's in the crowd, unreadable like a locked safe. He cleared his throat. The mic crackled. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice weathered. "This morning, we got it wrong. I got it wrong." A pause, a truth. "I'm responsible, and I'm sorry." Long ago, in the center of a wounded city, stood a man cloaked not in armor, but in shame. He was called Daniels, once a guardian, now a bearer of old regrets, and the people gathered, their eyes like torches, their silence like a spell. With trembling breath, the chief raised his voice. "We have sinned," he declared, his words like ash drifting through wind. "This fire, this fury, it is not born of one night. It is the echo of years." He named the rogue warriors, Riley and Jenkins, cast from the order for judgment. He vowed to scour the halls, to summon outside seers to weigh each stone for rot. The crowd did not cheer. They had heard promises before, as empty as windblown parchment. Daniels bowed his head. "Words are but whispers unless forged into steel. I know this. I feel the cracks beneath my feet, but we will build anew. With you, not above you." And just as he sought the spell to end his tale, a young truth-teller rose, Jamal of the people, voice sharp as dawn. "I hear you, Chief," he said, steady as stone. "But we do not feast on words. We demand deeds." Daniels, humbled, stepped aside. Jamal turned to the crowd and lit their hearts with a single flame. "Let justice not be a guest, but a resident. Let fairness flow like rain, not drip like mercy." And the people roared, not with rage, but hope. You ever see a man speak and know he's not just talking? He's cutting open a vein. That was Jamal West, standing center stage like the storm was behind him. "This isn't about one bad night," he said. "It's about 1,000 quiet ones where justice was missing in action. It's about a promise broken so many times, folks stopped believing it was ever real." And just like that, the crowd leaned in, eyes wet with memory, hearts thudding with maybe. "Change doesn't just happen," Jamal continued, voice low, steady. "It's earned, with grit, with guts, and not just by me, by all of us." Applause rolled through the crowd like thunder on hot pavement. Jamal took a step back, his job not done, just started. He waded into the crowd, shaking hands like sealing pacts. Each grip a vow, each hug a battlefield won. Up on the station steps, Thompson watched. Her relief came slow, like rain after drought. But her resolve? Iron hard. She turned to Daniels, still clinging to the podium like it might hold him up. "We're not out of the woods," she muttered. Daniels didn't flinch. "No," he said, "but we've finally lit a path." Then came the shadow, tall, unmoving, standing at the edge of it all, like the past hadn't let go yet. Imagine a man whose presence carries the tension of a loaded question. He doesn't speak first. He doesn't need to. He watches. Not like a spectator, like someone measuring outcomes. Thompson noticed him the moment his shadow crossed the edge of the crowd. Every instinct whispered, "Something's off." She approached, professional, polite, alert. "Can I help you?" He turned slowly, like he wanted her to see the full performance. "I need a moment with Mr. West," he said, tone neutral but practiced. There was no badge, no explanation, only that smile, hollow as a promise made under duress. "Who are you?" she asked, voice firmer now. "A friend of justice," he answered, and vanished before she could challenge him. Just melted into the crowd. It left her unsettled, like déjà vu with teeth. The sunset etched long shadows on the concrete, fitting somehow, because the day's answers had only raised new questions. Across the city, a different kind of energy pulsed. Not fear, not grief, construction. Jamal sat at the center of it, the eye of a collaborative storm. A teacher demanded they start young. A professor pushed for the present. He didn't interrupt. He gathered. Because he understood. Real change wasn't loud. It was layered, messy, and beautifully human. The ideas started as sparks, tiny flickers in the room's dim glow. But by the time the meeting wrapped, those sparks had turned into scaffolding. A legal aid clinic, pro bono and unapologetic. A watchdog board, side by side with internal affairs, but born of the people. Education programs built like armor. Civil rights, civic courage, and peace by understanding. When they stepped out into the night air, no one said it aloud, but they knew. The revolution had taken its first breath. Weeks blurred into months, and change, that slow, stubborn beast, finally started to stir. Lieutenant Thompson and her civilian watchdogs began reshaping the force, training in empathy, not just tactics. Cultural fluency replaced brute routine, and officers like Stevens, given the chance to leave the badge behind and earn it back. Meanwhile, the Justice Initiative kicked open doors. Their legal clinic? Already knee-deep in injustice, fighting tooth and nail. Their school programs? Spreading like wildfire, turning chalkboards into battlegrounds for truth. But it wasn't just paperwork and programs. The very air in the city felt different. People weren't just surviving. They were stepping into rooms that once shut them out. Police sat beside neighbors. Conversations replaced sirens. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was real. Missteps still happened. Bias didn't vanish overnight. But now, when something cracked, there was a scaffold waiting underneath. 6 months after it all began, Jamal returned to the station, not in cuffs, not in protest, but as a guest, a guide, a bridge. New recruits looked at him, not with suspicion, but attention. He stood at the front of the room, a survivor sculpted into a teacher. And in the echoes of his footsteps, even the walls felt like they were listening. The room fell still as he entered, not as a stranger, but as someone who once bore the weight of a system gone wrong. Officers nodded, not out of obligation, but with the quiet reverence reserved for those who've survived fire and walked back with wisdom. Lieutenant Thompson met him at the threshold, her handshake firm, her voice soft. "We're honored, Mr. West." "Just Jamal." He smiled. The recruits sat in rows, faces young and eyes split between caution and curiosity. To them, he was both mirror and storm, a living contradiction to what they'd been taught. "Justice," he began, voice steady as a drumbeat, "isn't just a badge or a verdict. It's how you treat someone who can give you nothing in return." They listened. They really listened. Questions came. Not easy ones. but meaningful, sharp as flint and honest as pain. Jamal responded not as a preacher, but as someone who had bled truth. When the session ended, a recruit lingered behind, young, nervous, but with a fire behind her eyes. "You reminded me why I signed up," she said. "I needed that." He smiled. "Then maybe we're finally turning the tide." Later that night, Jamal sat surrounded by case files, his mind sharp despite the hour. The knock came like punctuation. Maria Hernandez stood there, eyes lit like city lights. They approved the curriculum for every school. And for the first time in a long time, hope didn't feel like a risk. It felt like fact. A wide smile lit up Jamal's face, like someone had switched on the sun. "Maria, that's incredible." Maria laughed, her cheeks puffing with joy, then paused, turning serious. "It's not just me, Jamal. None of this would have happened without you. What you lived through matters." Jamal waved it off gently. "I may have been the spark, but it's the whole village that built this bonfire. We're in this together." They sat at the table, heads close, sketching out how their curriculum would make its way into every classroom. This was the magic of real change, not a fairy tale, but something hand-built with sweat, heart, and tenacity. Later, under a sleepy sky, Jamal stepped outside. The night breeze tousled his hair as he stood under the quiet stars. So much had shifted. In the streets, in the hearts of people. And yet, there was still so much more to do. But right now, right here, it felt good, like the first calm breath after a long storm. He smiled again. Tomorrow would be another mountain, but he'd climbed worse, and he wasn't alone. Step by step, one good deed at a time. And with that, he walked into the night, hope shining in his stride.